Hello there. Welcome on to the show. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Jordan. Hi, I'm Masanya Scott. I'm the product leader for the AWS Service Management Connectors. Nice to meet everybody. Hi, Nathan. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey,
Can you tell us a little bit about your launch today?
Yeah, so we recently launched the marketing page. Our service has actually been, it started off as a feature within AWS Service Catalog, right? And then we've expanded the service to integrate with different ISV platforms. So what AWS Service Management Connector does is give uh, users and customers the ability to provision, manage, and operate AWS resources and capabilities in their familiar ITSM tooling, such as ServiceNow and Atlassian Jira Service Management. And what we're trying to do is stop this little swivel chair experience that customers are going to, right? So if they need to do something like provisioning or incident management, I heard a question on incident response earlier, or if they need to see some resource transparency to determine if resources provisioned in AWS are compliant or not, or even look at health of our services, right? Instead of them having to go into AWS, look at 4 or 5 consoles, and then come back into their ITSM tooling to try to ascertain that, we're trying to bridge that gap. We're trying to meet customers where they are. So we started off with provisioning as our first use case as a feature of AWS Service Catalog. This service of Service Catalog basically is a proxy on top of CloudFormation that separates the permissions of resources and makes CloudFormation templates products that are curated so that end users can request through a self-service mechanism what they need without having direct access, right? So we've enabled that and made it, customers already use catalogs or request mechanisms such as ServiceNow Service Catalog or Service Request and Atlassian Jira Service Management. And they're like, look, my people order phones, they order tablets, they onboard a new employee in this platform, right? Why can't they order a web server or a workspace, right? Why can't they do that? So that's what we try to do. We just try to make AWS through our governance and cloud operations tool easier for customers to consume.
so if I understand correctly, these companies, they already have a portal, and that portal is where folks go to get everything that they might need in terms of resources from the company. And now AWS can show up as another resource in that portal, and it'll go through, it'll deploy services directly on their AWS account, and they don't even have to go into the AWS console.
Right, right.
Amazing. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Especially if I have I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I have a hybrid environment where I have some on-premise, resources, maybe I order a physical server, and then I'm also ordering a cloud server at the same time.
Right, right. And then customers will use asset or configuration management databases, also known as CMDB, to say what have my teams ordered, right? How do they relate to each other? If something goes bad with those resources, how can I do a proper impact analysis? And I'll show that in a minute in our demo, right? Of how we're bringing AWS to these platforms.
Okay, so if my team, if one team has been ordering, various resources like the tablet, the phone, the on-premise server, and they're also ordering AWS resources, now I can easily get a report of everything that team has, including the AWS stuff, showing up on the same report.
The discovered on-premise resources as well as the provisioned AWS resources, and we leverage services such as AWS Config, which is our configuration item resource and compliance service to make those visible. So we have 10 use cases 10 AWS services integrated into either our ServiceNow or Atlassian Jira Service Management integrations, right? And those, if I could talk about the most common 4 use cases that customers like to do is provisioning. So like I told you, think about a data analyst, right? Who may not be well versed in AWS, but they need an environment to test data or analyze data, right? So instead of them sending a ticket to cloud engineering to, hey, I need this size of a SageMaker notebook, put in these different, parameters, can you provision that and let me know? why don't we give them the power of self-service and let them do it themselves? When they're done with their testing, they either terminate it or they stop it, right? And then they can come back and do it the next day, right? To be cost effective. And then
Yeah,
instead,
that's so fantastic. I mean, that reminds me of like my old job where, I was working with a lot of scientists and data analysts, people who did not have any experience with AWS, but really needed more compute resources. And like the process for actually getting those resources approved was just so many steps from where they actually needed to be. And I think this is just like a fantastic solution to solve that use case.
Well, and this makes me think of another aspect too, because I've been at a startup where I've seen the data analyst trying to provision their own thing. They wanted to run a reporting job, every day at 5 o'clock. But in configuring it, they accidentally left the database open to the entire world, and there was a data breach issue where not everything got leaked, but some of the resources actually got leaked to the public. And we're like, well, how did this happen? It was because there wasn't a set pattern for how to actually deploy this particular component to do the data analysis. So how does this help with that type of scenario?
Are you trying to say go to a demo quick? Hold on.
Well, I'm just very interested in this because I've seen these same problems.
Think of proactive governance and compliance, right? So you've got the preventative controls where you curate things in templates, right? And those are tried and true. But then you need those detective controls. So we have things like config rules or AWS security findings. And in the demo, we're going to show an example of a security finding that becomes an ops item and show how that SSH port 22 is open. And we're going to remediate that in this demo to show that, what the beauty of the different, we have 35 cloud operations services within AWS today, right? And growing. And what the beauty of it is that we can enable customers to kind of design with ops in mind, right? Curate what you think is going to happen. And then as things happen, improve them, right? Because a lot of people, if you think about IT service management from an industry standard, a lot of people work to, set up governance, but then they don't work to improve it. That continual service improvement, what, IDO v3 or version 4 talks about. And what we're trying to do is help people to learn how to make it easier so that cloud engineers or just engineers in general can focus on improving and innovating. And then things that have been predictable, we've already got a mechanism to address those, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes total sense. Now, you mentioned the demo. I'm getting hyped up about this. Let's see if you can prepare your screen share there. And we'll bring it up as soon as you get your demo ready on screen there.
Okay. All right. So let's see if it's going to work. All right. 1 second. Put this. Tell me, can you see it?
Yes, I am. I'm adding it to the stream now.
All right. So yes, this is AWS Service Management Connector. And I know some people are like, why are we in ServiceNow? It's one of our integrations, right? They're one of the industry leaders in IT service management. And as you can see here, search AWS products, right? And through the streamline mechanism that the connectors does, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the alias of an account. We got to protect customers' information. I'm going to select the region. Let's go to Oregon. Portfolio is, think of a portfolio as a collection of CloudFormation templates that we call products, right? So I'm going to select that. And as I'm drilling down, then I get two options, an Nginx web server or S3 bucket. Well, we're not going to do the S3 bucket because I want to do some, operational actions on it afterwards, right? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to open the form in ServiceNow, and it looks similar to if a customer orders a mobile phone or onboards a new employee or requests facility services, right? So you'll see different portfolio details, information about it. It gives it a product name, which is the unique identifier with AWS Service Catalog. I'm going to put in some parameters, and the only parameter I really need is the VPC, right? A lot of stuff has been curated in the background. And then I'm going to give customers a choice, right, to do 5 different types of instances. Notice I didn't give them a choice to do Graviton or CP or M class products, right? Because I want to make sure that, we're cost efficient, cost effective. And if they just need a demo server, why are we giving them that type of compute, right? And then if you notice this too, we've even enabled it just based on enterprise customer feedback of they store cost centers in ServiceNow. So we'll give them the ability to maybe do some tagging, right? And pull from ServiceNow's cost center details, or even you could do it through AWS Service Catalog tag options and put that metadata on there. So when the cloud financial team comes back and says, okay, this Nginx web server was provisioned ACN, whatever 7, you need to pay for this, right? So that we can put that kind of governance in, right? So it's giving me that order confirmation, out of the box features of ServiceNow. And then I'm submitting that and it's going to go through, right? I didn't put
Right now, at this point, there's a relevant question I want to pop up on the screen from Angela on LinkedIn. She said, can you set up the workflow so it's not just one person releasing the issue? So I imagine she probably wants to have like a second approver to say, yes, you are allowed to provision that Nginx.
Out of the box, it comes up with it's considered kind of like a standard change request, pre-approved. And in this exercise, I went on and allowed it to go through, right? Because that's how it's configured. But you can modify the workflow to add an approval within ServiceNow, and then it can track that. And that's a similar capability that can also be done in Atlassian Jira Service Management. So
very nice. Yeah. So to answer Angela's question, it seems like absolutely possible. I love that.
Yes. And so as you can see here, the end user can see that it's provisioning in ServiceNow. But let's come back to our home front, right? I'm gonna do a quick refresh in AWS EC2. And let me get some launch times. Boom! You see, we're provisioning this here too, right?
Provision, baby, yeah.
And I especially like that the person who requested this, they didn't have to log into the AWS console.
Not at all.
They were actually logged in under your name on ServiceNow. They didn't even have an account on the AWS.
Exactly. Console. And even we add an additional layer of security where even in ServiceNow, based on ServiceNow groups, you can minimize who has access to different products as well, right? Based on the different accounts and use cases that you may have. So yes. And so what I want to show on this web server that's being provisioned, you're going to notice something bad, right? And you notice that 22, an inbound rule is going to be triggered, which is going to create, make this non-compliant in config, and then it's also going to create a ops item from a security finding. But for this,
so the source port there is 000, so it's allowing traffic from anywhere in the world to port 22.
Yes.
That's pretty bad. Yeah.
Not good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into one that was already pre-developed, pre-provisioned prior to this instance. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to resolve it because everything is cascaded to config. It's a near real time. So I want to make sure that the users can see what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to just copy this particular instance, and I'm going to go into ops items, right? And I'm going into Ops Center through ServiceNow. And I know you're like, wait a minute. Yes, we also integrate. I didn't get time to talk about the other use cases. From an operational, we have 2 event-driven style integrations with AWS Security Hub, creating security incidents in ServiceNow. And then with Ops Center, creating ops items that can create automatically ServiceNow incidents depending on the severity level. And then in 2 things from a particular incident management, AWS support cases can also be created as ServiceNow incidents or Atlassian Jira Service Management incidents. And I'm going to show that demo in a minute. So let's get to business, right? So this here, we've got this. I'm going to go back and just validate that this is the right one. that security group 0980 resources. Go back to that real quick. 098. All right. Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to execute an automation document in ServiceNow, because we have automation integrated to the connector as well. I'm going to look for one automation document called, let's see, disabling incoming. The third one, I'm going to order an execution of it. It's going to come up in just a second. It's thinking. And then all I need to do is give the security group for that. Similar to how I ordered that, I'm making a request for this document to execute, right? It's a similar kind of pattern. And then it's going to order that, right? I'm going to click on this description link. And then in a minute, it's going to first show, if I look at the resources, that it's pending automation execution status, right? Okay. If I do a quick little refresh, right, in a minute, in the fullness of time, as we say, it will come open, and it should show us that particular automation document updated.
So if I'm understanding correctly, I can now build a collection of automations as like essentially a run book in ServiceNow.
Yes.
That can automate different things on my AWS account. I don't even have to give people access to the AWS account. I can give them access to the run book and let them execute these pre-approved workflows from ServiceNow.
Yes.
Very
nice. That must save so much time.
Yeah. And so now you see it's a success, right? And let's go back into EC2, right? Do like a quick little refresh, and let's see if port 22 is still open or not for this particular resource, right? And it's coming. And so if I click on it, I'm clicking in security, scrolling down. And do y'all see 22 anymore?
No, it's gone.
It's gone. Now,
I like that.
Like, okay, Sonia, so that an incident was also created in ServiceNow. Now I can go resolve that incident, give the workaround that we disabled the port, right? So that now is in compliant. So in a minute, as we're going through the CMDB of ServiceNow, and I want to take you guys there in a minute, that pre-live demo is going to show the resource as compliant, because there is a kind of like a near real time. It's got to get in config, and then we've got to pull it in, right? But I want to show you that once that resource is resolved, and the resource that I just provisioned, let's go back. Let me go to that one first, because in a time lapse, I can go back to pre-live demo and show you guys that resource was resolved. So that third use case that we didn't talk about is resource transparency, right? So what we do is on an incremental time, the customer can increase or decrease that time. We bring in to ServiceNow, to their majority out of the box CMDB cloud tables, we bring in AWS resources, and we show the relationships to those resources. In the event that server that I just created was associated to an incident, right? We could then also, the end user could do an impact analysis, or the service desk agent, to see what impact this particular server has, and show that pictorially, right? So you're conducting that impact analysis, you're giving that transparency, you're showing whether or not resources are compliant or not, right? And then they can do that reporting off of it as well. So I've shown the use cases of provisioning of the four, discussed the different areas of incident management or operational excellence, showed resource transparency, and then I'll just mention that we do bring over details for AWS Health onto ServiceNow's platform as well, based on per account. So any events or operational activities, we can show that, and then engineers or service teams can see the health of our AWS services within this platform. So like I stated, streamlining that, right? Well, we talked about, I'm moving from ServiceNow, I'm moving over to also Atlassian Jira Service Management, right? Atlassian, of course, is the, does not only Jira Service Management, but Confluence, Bitbucket, CI/CD pipelines. It's considered, a DevOps platform, innovative DevOps platform that also addresses operations, right? So what I want to do is, Jordan, I'm assuming that you turned on your Alexa device today and something went wrong with it, right? So I just want you to agree with me while I
Oh
go to
yeah,
this
no,
use
Alexa
case.
hates me. She never
All
listens
right.
to what I say. Despite working at
Okay.
Amazon, I thought it would get better, but it hasn't.
It didn't get good? Okay, I'm so sorry.
She
So what I'm going to
listens
do
to
now
all my
is,
family members that come over and like they can give her commands, but she doesn't listen to me. I think it's personal.
hates Jordan, because that's what you said. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, yes, this is a support case. I'm going to pull in that this is for Alexa. I'm going to make sure so that it won't become a live case and they go screaming. I'm going to say it's based off of general guidance or other. We could do that, right? And then if we looked at the issue, it hates Jordan, right? And I'm going to hit create, right? So in Atlassian Jira Service Management, I just created an AWS support case. Now, I'm sure just really cool. If you're looking and listening to this, I'm sure if you use AWS, you might have created a support case, right? You don't have to tell me, but I'm sure of it, right? So let's go into AWS support to see. I'm gonna do a quick refresh on it, right? Let's see if that happened, right? And so I'm going to review all those cases. And then bam, 29 seconds ago, I put it there. So our customers don't have to create a case. We call them cases and we have different parameters, right? Then they use Jira Service Management as their, and work with Jira agents to get those cases kind of resolved. Why do they have to copy and paste when we can just synchronize and bring this stuff together, right? And that's what these connectors are trying to do.
And will communication here be two-way? Like if a AWS support person responds here on the AWS console, will that be pulled back into Jira then?
Yes. And if it's resolved in Jira, then it'll resolve in AWS. Or if it's resolved in AWS, vice versa, right?
Very nice.
That's so logical. Why isn't everything like this?
Yeah. I mean, I've been, even prior to joining, it's a common practice to make operations before cloud existed, right? Integrated and easier, right? Because even prior to AWS, customers would integrate telecommunication systems to their ITSM tools, all that stuff. And now it's just time, right? It's been time. And we're doing it, right? And we're going to grow and learn. And I'm also just curious from the audience, what else would they, from a cloud operations and governance perspective, what other use cases do you want to see us do? We'd love to hear from you.
Actually, one fantastic comment just right now on LinkedIn, or actually on Twitch. What's the roadmap for adding compliance audits such as GDPR and SOC 2?
I would say that yes, those things are being considered. And what I never explained how these connectors work, right? So we leverage public APIs, right? And if an API doesn't exist, I work hard with 10 plus product managers like myself to make sure that we get those types of features in. So what happens is we got to expose it because I want to be that channel that makes it easier. So if those types of capabilities exist, either in our audit manager, tooling or all that, then we can leverage and determine if that use case can fit. And then we can bring it over to the ITSM tools that we own and integrations that we own and support.
That's amazing. I love that. And I can imagine why that is such a challenging thing to coordinate all these different AWS services, but then making them all consumable in another product like Jira or ServiceNow is be incredibly useful for many folks who are on those platforms.
Yes, it is.
I love this demo. Is there anything else you want to show us here in the demo before we run out of time?
No, I don't. I just want, we, like I stated, we just launched our marketing page. And I believe that information is available. We are offering what's called enablement activation days. I have a team where we want to get people set up. If you have questions, even if you have feedback, if you have, hey, what use cases, if you want to talk about roadmap, if you have NDAs with us, we'd love to hear those, because like I stated, we started out with Service Catalog. People said that's great, but we need CMDB integrations. We need incident. We need these different things. We need to go measurement and reporting. And, this to me is just the beginning, right? So we're addressing some operational, but more to come, definitely, based on what customers say is important to them.
Absolutely.
Exciting.
Well, thank you so much for showing us this product. I'm excited for it, excited to see people adopt it and make their AWS integration even easier.
Yes. Trying to meet you where you are, people. We appreciate it.
Awesome.
And you're succeeding. Thank you so much for signing in.
Thank you.
Great.